so easy to trace, you can take it to the real world and you can arrest the criminals. And this happens all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, well, was that a story I would like to share with you is we had a cyber attack, or it's called a cyber attack. We weren't even sure if it was really a cyber attack. This is why I asked, what is it not? And a colleague of mine said something very that I found surprising. She said to me, well, if it happens, it happens. I can't do anything against it. So for me, she actually made a very nice comparison, saying, well, if in the city there's a pickpocket thief and that person steals my wallet, it's not my fault.
Yeah, there's now mitigating controls that are coming out to help prevent some of these things. There's actually insurance protocols now that can protect you in the event of attack, and these can be centralized insurance protocols or DAO-based ones too, to see if it's a fair or not. And so there is ways to protect yourself from that. If it's something that you're transacting with a centralized type system, usually they'll have their own regulations to comply with that or insured with it. But if you lose your key for like a private hardware wallet, I mean, there's no help desk that you can call to say, can you reset my private key for me? So there, it depends on how you transact with it, would be considered if it's recoverable or not recoverable.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'm saying that we have 30 seconds to go. Let's share some concluding remarks. I would say a fact from you and a fiction from Kate. That would be nice to hear.
So a fact, actually, I'll say a quote. This is one of my favorite ones. So if you want to understand Bitcoin, you have fiat. Fiat is the government's money. Gold is God's money. Bitcoin is the people's money.
And I would just say cybersecurity begins with you, so develop those good habits.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us. Hopefully we could raise awareness in terms of cybersecurity, and looking forward for the other panels and keynotes. Thank you very much.
Money for play. Credit without banks. Moderated by Oleg Ivanov, Berezka Ventures. With Dr. Sarah Grace Mansky, Versus.io. Oscar Chambers, Umbria Network. Niels Tarrant Ortiz, Paypolitan. And Tony Giordano, Giordano Industries.
Hi, everyone. So this panel is actually going to be a fight chat between myself and Niels. So I hope that you enjoy. And we are going to talk about something quite important, because it's all about this concept of money and how it's been changed thanks to new technology. So my name is Stefania Barbaglio. I actually work with Oscar on Umbria, that is developing a DeFi product, and one of them is a cross-chain bridge that is very fast, and they are implementing different chains. Then I have a YouTube channel, and I work and advise different projects, including Cardano on NFT. And here is Neil. So introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, Stefania. Hello, everybody. I'm Niels Tarrant Ortiz. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Paypolitan. I'm a trained lawyer. I worked in diplomacy for a couple of years before starting my first ventures, and I'm also an active Air Force officer.
Okay, so money for play, credit without banks. So let's maybe start to talk about how the concept of money has been changing, particularly empowering people, because nowadays, for example, I was thinking you can actually earn money as a liquidity provider, which is something great, and it wasn't obviously possible if we were not using blockchain technology. And that's quite a revolutionary concept, really, because you don't need to put the money in your bank to earn interest. You can actually provide the liquidity to a protocol and be your own bank, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, if you look into banking, what is the role of the bank? It's a financial institution that is receiving deposits from the public, A, and B, lending money. But this business of lending money, the so-called peer-to-peer lending, what we were talking about right now, is even older than banks. I mean, in ancient times, who was lending? So you could lend me something, take an interest, I could lend you something. So that is a very old business. But nowadays, with technology we have, you have an increased trust level and have different features. Peer-to-peer lending, I was reading it in 2018, had a global market of $34 billion US, and it's increasing by over 50% yearly to reach in 2025 $589 billion US. That shows that peer-to-peer lending is huge, and there should be also a reason why the banks are not filling this gap anymore, why people are running away from the banks and start lending it in between. So something went terribly wrong with the banks, I would say.
Yeah, but the question is, I mean, we see that banks are struggling to kind of keep up with technology. And one of the things that is obviously happening is CBDCs. So they are trying to find another way to get into technology. They are going to launch their digital currency. Is that going to work? Because, you know, we have got stablecoin. And then banks are talking about CBDCs. They might going to happen, I don't know, 2-3 years, because nothing is going to happen right now, apart of China. Is that something that will allow banks to keep up their power or not?
Well, look at me. I am in my late 40s. I was raised a bit my culture from my parents. Whenever you have some money, you put it into the bank.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you ask me, who are you lending money from, I would go to the bank.
Yeah, but that's because it's safe, isn't it? Because, you know, you put your money there and you have trust in the organization, the institution.
Well, maybe until the Euro crisis or Lehman, I thought it's safe.
Yeah.
And then actually I learned that the banks were playing with all my savings. And I learned, no, the bank is not a place safe, actually. So it might be safer if I take the money from him and give him back the money. He would not play with it around than actually the banks did. So this is what we saw. And actually what happened is the banks, for the consumer, what do? Today we have negative interest rate. If I have 100,000 in the bank account, the same money will be maybe 95,000 in a year. And then the inflation rate is not even discounted. So the business model of the bank is not going to the right direction. And then DeFi came, and I have an annual yield of for staking of 16, 17, 20, 25%. That sounds to me much more interesting than having a minus 1% in my bank.
Yeah, the other aspect is that banks they have our data, right? And with the concept of CBDC coming out, that is gonna be even worse, because they are gonna know everything about each customer, which is a bit scary, I think. I mean, it's like Facebook and the metaverse. That's, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable nowadays to give all data to an organization. And we have got other opportunities, because Bitcoin has proven able to create a different kind of ecosystem where you have control of your own data. And I think that's invaluable for everybody.
Yes.
I mean,
on the other hand, I mean, when you ask a bank for a loan, they will check.
exactly.
Will you get it? And the
And then, and also, Neil, can I stop? They are going to choose if they're going to give the loan to you. It's not, you know, you want to get a mortgage. Are you going to get no mortgage? Maybe not. Maybe they don't want you. Who knows? So,
and with peer-to-peer lending, I mean, it's not a charity either. I'm lending money because I want to make profit out of this. But the barrier to lend money in peer-to-peer is much lower than a bank who's, you have to understand, I mean, the guy in the bank, he's just checking all these boxes here. And if one box is red, he will not get that loan. He's only an employee. He's making his 2,000 euros a month. That's it. He's going at home. He want to have his salary. He want to have no trouble. And if you're peer-to-peer lending, it's your responsibility. It's only you and me. So you're gonna decide if you're gonna borrow me or you're lending money or not. So it's your decision actually, but which could be a good decision because you have the person in front of you who's willing to give it or not.
so if we are going to talk about what's the future for banks, what's your view? I mean, are they going to survive this DeFi revolution?
The banks will not disappear, of course. They inhere into a system. There has to be some pillars of stability. It has to be institutional. I totally agree. But the retail banking, as we have known it as before, that in every village, in every town, every bank, like 5 banks of the country, have a branch office, this will disappear. I think it's a bit like the travel agencies. I don't know where you come from, but when I was a child, in every city, there was a travel agent, or 3 or 4. And basically, in 20 years, at least in Paris, they all disappeared. There may be 10 travel agency brick and mortars is still there. Everything is online. Myself, I mostly use online banking, so I don't need a branch office. And this will definitely change. And the lending part, I mean, if we see that the growth rate of 50% peer-to-peer lending, it speaks for itself, right? The question is, how can you cluster, how can you check, make a background check of the guy you're lending your money? This is a big question. With Paypolitan, we have a payment app that is simply aggregating your bank accounts, your existing ones, and your existing wallets. You simply connect it to the app and use it from there. And we also have instant credit. It's also a peer-to-peer solution we developed as a partner. And we also had the question, okay, this guy, he wants to have 1,000 USDT. How can we make sure he is paying it back? And then we decided, as we have a token, that we take a certain amount according of your previous lendings, and then we calculate the risk rate, and you have to have a collateral that is blocked by smart contract for the time of the lending period, up to 180 days. This is the way we found we could have a background check, a very fast one that is done in a minute. And not like a bank telling you, come back in 2 weeks, put your suit and the tie on. I think I don't even have a tie anymore, so I could not even ask a bank for a loan.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I get your point, and I think that obviously a regulation and this element about checking identity is obviously important. So in a way, regulation is important as well for the landscape to evolve. Well, if you want to get a loan, rather than going to a bank, you could perhaps get one from Aave eventually.
Yes, absolutely.
So that is basically an application where you can get a loan. The issue is about collateralization.
Yeah.
That's kind of an issue because it's still not kind of straightforward. You still
Yes.
need to hold assets, and with the volatility that is in the crypto space, that can be a challenge as well.
Because even with peer-to-peer lending, the fact that you want to have back your money you're giving to someone else you don't even know, and with a profit, you want to have certain layers of security and be ensured this will be the case, right? So, but what we see is there might be an increasing demand of loans, but it will simply shift to a unregulated sector. This is what we see with the peer-to-peer lending.
Okay, so so you basically said the banks are going to be here to stay. Are they at some point adding Bitcoin to the balance sheet?
I hope so. I mean, if I was a bank and cryptocurrencies, you name it, even so they're very reluctant calling it a currency because you have all this regulation behind the banks, and every state is, of course, afraid of cryptocurrencies because remember, in old times, who had the privilege to make money, to print money? The king. It was a royal privilege. It gave to the city, you can make your own money. And the same is happening today. It's a central bank who is doing the money. And when they start accepting it, they're of course afraid of losing control of the money circuit, which is the case actually already today. But on the other hand, cryptos became a new asset class, and you cannot kill it anymore. I would rather recommend everyone put a regulatory framework on it that is not killing it. Don't try to kill it, because otherwise it will go somewhere else. And that as a decentralized, it will go somewhere else. You cannot stop that movement anymore. So getting back to the banks, they have to reinvent a bit their business model. And if you look up today, which are the new banks? Those are neobanks. It's Revolut, it's N26, and all those banks are like Revolut do come with a very clearly defined and simple crypto luggage. So that is even part, if you go to Revolut and there is no crypto, I think half of the Revolut users would simply not go to Revolut. So those neobanks are showing the old established retail banks where the journey is going to. Because if you look at the youngsters, I mean, those who grew up with a smartphone, if I look at my kids, I think sometimes there must be a magnet in their fingers. They never lose their iPhone. It's like stick to the hand. And those guys with the Revolut, they always do like this, click, 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 and do the payment and do everything online. They don't even need the branch office from the bank. And for them, crypto is as normal as fiat is. And if the retail banks are not getting that, I think they will have a very reduced role in the future, a very reduced role. They will totally disappear from smaller cities. Maybe in some big cities there might be some branch offices, but they will be reduced to an institutional lending role. But the retail market will shift. The new generation, those who are 22 days and millennials, they have already a totally different approach of money, what money is.
And then obviously we are seeing company like Circle, they are becoming like a bank. They are like a new generation of bank. And stablecoin are going to be regulated very soon because that's next to happen. So perhaps the banking system is going to be very different than what has been. And this technology company, like Circle, for example, they are going to be the new banks.
Yes, actually, this was our first claim when I founded Paypolitan 3 years ago. We said Paypolitan is a bank, being a bank without being a bank.
Yeah.
Because at least in the European Union, with the PSD2 directive, we have a legal framework that allows fintechs to act as a bank. With open banking APIs, you can act as a fintech today as if you were a bank, without having all those regulations and deposit and all that luggage an institutional bank would have to carry. So this means the banking sector will be much more dynamic, but there are also gonna be some downsides. I think there are also gonna be some bankruptcies or some fintechs that will run away with the money. I mean, we have seen this already in the past. That simply burned the money of their customers and said, yeah, it's safe. It's all secured with smart contracts. Even so that there is certain instability. And I think it will continue like this. There's always, when you have a new market, there is still a bit of Wild West in this DeFi sector. And I wish that we have a bit, let's say, clear rules or like guidelines or best practices that could stabilize the sector.
Okay. Another aspect that I think is worthwhile to mention is about the fragmentation that is in the DeFi space, because you have got, as we said, company like Circle, then there are the other payment provider, other banks, they try to reinvent themselves, but it's kind of like very fragmented. So how we are going to actually keep all a unified landscape where you can actually move the money from one place to another one in a smooth way, because it is a challenge.
Yes, I see there is a big challenge of networks. Today, the biggest network is Ethereum, but if you go into micro-lending, there is no business case. I mean, I'm sending sometimes small tokens I'm holding like for $15, $10, and I pay like $100 gas fees.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that is not really the bright future I was dreaming of. And
but that's also it puts like a barrier for people to participate in DeFi.
yes, I mean,
So that's a big issue.
micropayments, which is the majority of peer-to-peer lending, is microfinance, because especially the unbanked who are not getting the loan from the bank, they're asking the buddy next to you, could you borrow me $50 or 100? So the gas fees on Ethereum, the biggest network, is a challenge. The Berlin and London fork, who took place in August, they're still on Robster testnet. I don't know why it's taking that long. Is there a problem? Question mark. If so, that would even create a bigger problem, I think, for the whole Ethereum network. And then we have other networks like Binance, we have Cardano, Solana. And the problem is the cross-chain. We also built for our token a bridge for the Binance network, but it's not that easy. And it's a bit like the computers in the times back, like 30 years back. Microsoft, the operation system, they give everything with Microsoft.
I was just having a conversation earlier on. As you bridge from one network to the other, you actually need to have a liquidity on each network. And that's very important. So, yeah, I think one of the major issues of DeFi is really interoperability and being able to develop bridging technology. They can be really cheap and fast as well, because at the end of the day, user experience is the most important point, really.
Yeah, especially for microfinance. I mean, like say up to $100 or $500, the gas fee should be around 10 or 20 cents. Sorry for all the miners here in the room. That is how much it costs.
Yeah, well, we are going to see where the money will go and how they are going to flow, and how the DeFi space is going to evolve. I think it's just a great place to be alive now and just watch what is happening in finance. Okay, thank you, Neil. And
Thank you, Stefania.
everybody for...
Thank you, everybody. Brava. You do a very good moderator.
Which emerging technologies will shape future cities? By Phillip Shoemaker, Identity.com. building blockchain technologies that help us do more for our planet. Moderated by Justin Goldstone, with Christian Glebo, BeyondyOrcane.io, Jerry Lopez, Philcoin, Mecca Krautschei, Smart Ledger, and Daniel Thompson Ivitot, Tauri Apps.
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Justin Golston. I am a professor at Penn State University, as well as a visiting professor and advisory board member at Georgetown. I primarily research blockchain, supply chain management, and sustainability, but I would say my life's work is to build one of the largest blockchain incubators within the big country metaverse with our SITTech DAO project. So if you all, could you introduce yourself?
Hi all, my name is Christian Glebo. I am from Croatia and I am founder of and CEO of Beyondy. We are specialized to building blockchain applications and infrastructures for ICO minings, DeFi, and private permission blockchain and distributed ledgers.
Hello everyone, my name is Maike Krautscheit and I'm the CCO of Smart Ledger. Smart Ledger is a blockchain solution distribution channel. We have access to more than 250 blockchain innovations that we bring in all sorts of industries. We customize these products and services and also create our own products and services based on a highly scalable blockchain that will make the world a better place.
Hi, I'm Daniel Thompson, and maybe the odd one out because technically I'm not in the business of blockchain. I'm a systems engineer, and my friends and I have built an open source software engineering toolkit, and I'm here to really kind of bring home this message that your architecture is actually the key to finding these big, important ecological wins.
Hi, I'm Nico de Jong. I'm the CEO and founder of Blockchain Valley and Blockchain Valley Virtual. Sorry that I lost my voice. My wife sold it as an NFT. We are basically making a smart city totally on blockchain technology in Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. And we are making a one-on-one copy in the metaverse so people that cannot visit the actual city for events and so can actually follow the same things in our metaverse.
Excellent, excellent. So you made a comment about how we can leverage open source technologies to lead to a more sustainable world, and that's one thing that I always talk about often. So can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I mean, open source isn't just a tool, it's a community, it's an ethos, it's a pathos, and I think that it's not just a way to lower your bottom line when you're designing software, but it really kind of tunes you in to what's important to especially the younger generation of developers. I mean, in my career, I've seen waves come and go, and you have this general time in your life before you have a house, before you have kids, that you can be really idealistic. And I think that this is the idealism that spawned these blockchain innovations that we're riding right now. And to have insight into where the future goes, I think we really need to not only find these people that are doing this, but also assist them with mentoring opportunities and also donations. I mean, I guess if there was a problem in open source that you might not know about, it's the sustainability of it, because everybody sees it as free real estate, and the maintainers of open source libraries, they burn out, and suddenly your software is unmaintained, unpatched, full of vulnerabilities. And, you know, I think as a larger community, it's really important for us to support these people.
Excellent. Does anyone else have anything to add on that? No? All right. So I know that we mentioned that we could use decentralized autonomous organizations or DAOs to lead to a more sustainable world, to a more equitable world. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? In that I've been working with a number of DAOs, so I'm a part of KlimaDAO, where KlimaDAO is looking to purchase carbon offsets to increase the pressure of those within the industry to act more sustainably. So has anyone looked into the incorporation of DAOs within your strategies?
So what I think about the blockchain technology in the manner of making world a better place is the crowdsourcing model, definitely. So for example, you have the plastic bank. I don't know, did you ever heard for that? But it's the IBM technology where they put the vending machines on the coast of Indonesia, and you can harvest the plastic from the sea and put it into the vending machine and get the tokens for the harvested plastic. The same thing you can apply on various use cases. For example, if you have, like, we had the floods in Europe, in Germany, before 3 months ago. So basically you can crowdsource the donations and make it possible to acquire them through some way of certification, digital identity, which are well-known technology to be used in the blockchain. So everybody can be a donors and everybody can be a consumers based on the needs. And what I see as a great thing about the charities on the blockchain is when you donate something, you don't get the feeling that you are part of it if it goes to the centralized authority. With the blockchain itself, you can get into real use case, you know, and you can feel important that you are doing something.
Go ahead.
When it comes to blockchain technology, I also think these open access to a blockchain technology is very important. So permissioned, let's say, blockchain solutions are, I think, not a solution for the planet, actually. Also, so a public blockchain technology that is highly scalable and that is sustainable, not only in a technological way, but also economical and ecological way. And for example, we as Smart Ledger, when we are building our applications, we are building our applications on the BSV blockchain because we think the open access, stable protocol, and the highly flexibility that you can do tokenization, smart contracts, recording contracts can be applied to all sorts of industries. And when you have a blockchain technology that can be applied everywhere at the end, they are interoperable application systems can be easier provided, and at the end will make everything more sustainable, efficient, effective.
I think, like we said, sustainability, so we have to do also a lot for the environment. I think it's not only on the blockchain side, but what we as CEO from blockchain companies do with the power that we have. For example, 2-3 weeks ago, I was in Dubai on GITEX, and I was approached by 2 delegations of countries from the Middle East. I will not tell which ones because we are still negotiating. And they said, we want to catch up with Dubai. We want to have a very big blockchain hub in the Middle East. We want to make blockchain valley here. And I said, as a CEO, because I find the environment very important, I said, if I bring all the know-how here, if I bring the right people here, what will you do for the environment? And they were watching me like, what do you mean? I said, if I bring you the technology that you can make from the desert forest, will you do it? Because I'm not going to bring all the knowledge and all the things here that people are sitting here in the heat in the next 10 years, and it's not sustainable. So I think it has a lot to do what we take for ourselves as CEOs to do something on the environment. Like in Blockchain Valley in Bulgaria, we have 150 hectares of trees. We are going to make from every tree an NFT. We are going to make like an adopted tree NFT. So people are basically helping us to maintain that forest, to do something back for the world.
That's excellent. And I think so, to your point, and I think that this is to the point of everyone on this panel, is that to get to where we need to go, it's going to take the societal aspect. Whenever we talk about sustainability, we think environmental, right? But it's the societal aspect that's very important. And we teach a lot about the triple bottom line within business school: people, planet, and profit. But we need to understand the quadruple bottom line, and that fourth P is what you said in purpose. You need to understand the purpose of the founders of the organization, right? Because if they are there to just make money, I don't think it's going to end well, right? And one of my favorite TEDx talks is come from Dr. Alex Edmonds. And he talks about where he did a longitudinal study of the top 100 companies to work for in the U.S. And he said those that put the people first, those that focused on social responsibility, beat their competitors year over year for the last 10 years. So Alex Edmonds, EDMANS, TEDx, you will see it. My favorite TEDx talk, period. But my question is, what do you think in terms of the importance of that fourth P in purpose, just within the organization? Just forget about the sustainability, just for an organization, period. Anybody?
So I think it has to be always a mixture. Many or some companies might fail if they only focus on, we want to make the world a better place, but don't have economical background that they can actually bring these visions and inspirations to life. So also to have the people who have these visions, to have the power to bring these things to life that are envisioned. So also, for example, one of the technologies like it's proof of work, how to prove or verify a transaction. People only think then about BTC normally, and it's a waste of energy and waste of money. But actually this consensus mechanism we think is very important because it gives an economic incentive to also bring the technology forward. It's also about data security and make mechanisms more efficient, effective. So for the network to stay honest. So I think the 4 Ps are very important in every field.
I would like to add something to that. So the 4P and the organization, that's the same like when they're saying that Bitcoin is actually consuming and it's bad for environment. How I see it's a paradox. Bitcoin is too innovative for this kind of energy sources. So he's actually pushing the transformation to renewable energies. That's the same way how we see blockchain as non-governed entities. It's actually governed by miners. Miners are actually those who govern the blockchain. If they do not want to update, you get the forks. So that's the way from the perspective of the organization, how I see the 4 Ps is that the whole ecosystem is 1 P. That's the point. Everybody, if you invest in the blockchain or in any kind of cryptocurrency, you need to fight for it, if you believe it. It's not just a stock of one company which will go up and down. You will get maybe more from your investment if you take part of it. The same is doing anything over it or supporting it on any way. That's how it needs to be done. So the whole ecosystem, all those blockchain technology are actually 1 P. It's something new what's coming and something what requires completely different setup from what we have now and completely different mindset and vision.
I really think that as engineers, you know, on the one hand, you have the challenge and the excitement of solving a problem that maybe nobody ever thought about before. I feel, to answer your question directly, it's really important that engineers start to think about taking something like a Hippocratic Oath, which means you take responsibility for the monsters you bring into this world and you train them and make them into grown-ups. Because I remember when we had a paperless office, right? Email comes out and all of a sudden everybody's printing their emails. And now with the new ledger, we have 8 copies of that email. We're transacting this single document that checks on the public signature and maybe some metadata 8 times around the planet. And we're all concerned that proof of work consumes so much energy. And I think the point that a lot of people forget is sending any bit of information across any medium costs concrete electricity. The more bits you send, the more, you know, controlling elements that are in that system, the more electricity it costs. And so we've created a wonderful system that is a ledger that's probably one of the greatest inventions that the humanity has come up with. But at the same time, we need to discover ways, architectural solutions that can reduce that ecological footprint. And I'm not talking about planting 100 trees. We need to be planting billions of trees. Like, it's insane how much electricity is used for just one blockchain. And it's easy math. I encourage you to try it. It's important.
Well, that one country I was talking with, they will commit probably to 50 billion trees, so it's going a good way. I think with these electricity things, like the partners here said, blockchain is doing the opposite, because people in crypto and blockchain, they are modern hippies. They care more about the environment than everybody else. So with the smart cities we built on blockchain and so, it will be conscious cities. We will have renewable energy, we will care about the nature and so, but it's also about what we do back for the world on other sides. Like, for example, in the virtual part we are going to do, we have poor regions in the world that don't have access to, for example, classrooms and so, because it's too far to school and so, we can do for free virtual classrooms and so to give back to the community. For example, metaverse for children with autism, it's proven that it's a perfect place to learn social skills. So, of course, you need to make money because otherwise you cannot give to the community. But I think it depends on us a lot. Take money, but give a part back to the community.
Yeah, I just want to say something more. What I got in mind while listening to the guys. So basically, we speak about trees, electricity, etc., and how all that can make the world a better place. But at the end, what we miss the most is the truth in information and immutability from the source. So just putting blockchain for that will eliminate so much trouble in our everyday modern life, in smart cities which will come, in mobilities which will come, that using blockchain only for that will make it like 100 times better than now.
Yeah, immutable proof from a universal source of truth at the end. That there's, for example, like proof of ESG or ESG stamp, that companies who provide information about their sustainability, that they really are incentivized to stick to the truth they are sending out.
So yeah, so as we were running out of time, I mean, that was the one thing I wanted to say is we need to educate others. We're all in this room because we get it. We're on this stage because we get it, right? The thing I share with my students is you have to shout it from the rooftops. Somebody will listen, right? And you have to have conviction, and you have to just share the knowledge so that everyone is educated. So thank you all. Thank you all for listening. We're out of time. And thank you all to the organizers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The shift towards equity. Takeaways from 4 years of blockchain-related transactions. By Gil Solomon, Gil Solomon & Co.
Hello, everyone. Just getting my ticker. Hello, everybody. Happy to be here. So first of all, I'll start by giving thanks. Thank you for attending. Thank you for attending this amazing event. Thank you for being part of this amazing ecosystem. And obviously, thank you to Sigma for orchestrating and organizing such an amazing event. And for having me here. So I'm here on behalf of my law firm to speak to you about cryptocurrency investments and takeaways from 4 years of doing cryptocurrency transactions and blockchain-involved transactions. My firm and myself have been in this space for the last 4 years. We've been representing investors, exchanges, companies, service providers, and other involved parties. And this year has been a very special year for our firm, as this year we have been ranked by Dun & Bradstreet as one of the leading firms in our country, Israel, making me the youngest ever ranked attorney in Israel. So, speaking about blockchain cryptocurrency transactions has to start from somewhere, right? And the grand scale of cryptocurrency and blockchain transactions started in 2017, but before that, we had the beginning, what we call in the beginning. And it started by the first ICO, obviously, or the invention of the Bitcoin prior to that. And the first ICO was in 2013 by Mastercoin. Then in 2014, Ethereum had its token generation event. Ethereum, now the second largest cryptocurrency in terms of market cap, raised in its ICO only $2.3 million. Is it like what? 1,000 Ethereum right now or so? That's amazing. So that what happened before 2017. 2017 and on until the mid of 2018, we had the ICO boom. The ICO boom was characterized by a large-scale investments in tokens and cryptocurrencies of company issuing in high amounts of capital investments. So we saw Kick Software issuing KIN tokens for $150 million. We saw Bancor raising $150 million. We saw Orbs raising $250 million. And then during 2018, we saw Telegram reaching the Tres Comas Club, Silicon Valley reference, by the way, by issuing cryptocurrencies to the public in an amount of $1.7 billion, followed, and I think it was the only time that any amount beyond 1.7 B was raised, and it was EOS, offering the toll up to after what today is claimed to be a little bit of wash trading for almost $4.5 billion. Now, in light of all these offerings and a little bit of what we call scam offerings and offerings that didn't live up to the hype that the white paper provided for or the websites provided for, regulators got into the market and started to scrutinize everything. And then we saw a little bit of retreat from the market by companies and issuers. Most of them were legitimate. So, has crypto really changed the way we do business? The answer is categorically no, in my opinion. All, or almost all, of the major investments and major issuances of cryptocurrency involved a pre-sale stage. All these pre-sale stages involved individuals, high net worth individuals, and funds and other accredited investors doing business the old-fashioned way, with us lawyers involved, which meant, correctly, paper agreements, the old-fashioned way. So crypto didn't have anything to contribute to the market at the time of the investment contemplation and the investment consummation. The need for traditional clauses like indemnification, escrow, legal opinions still existed with these kind of investors, which meant that there is no real addition. And then we had STOs. STOs were scrutinized and regulated like any other security offering, or were meant to be, at least. So this led to the end of ICOs as we know them, at least in the grand scale we had in 2017, 2018. The ICO boom faded, and then there was a period of an increase in equity investments in all sorts of cryptocurrency and blockchain-involved enterprises. Sequoia got into the market, Andreessen Horowitz, Draper Capital, and others, investing in total of billions only during 2018. So following the burst of the bubble, when this bubble burst, started a phase that we call the crypto winter. And the crypto winter was basically symbolizing the decline of the market up to a total market cap of $110 billion. And it recovered only by mid-2019 when it's reached $270 billion. Then we also noticed about that time, during mid-2019, a world trend of regulatory and legislative improvement where companies tested the waters involving cryptocurrency. We saw sandboxes and we saw legislative initiations in all sorts of European countries like the UK, France, Germany, Switzerland, Malta, obviously. Malta, by the way, jumped the gun before everyone else, and I think that the Digital Asset Act was actually got into effect late 2018. So the market moved from the performance of ICOs to a more mature mechanism like IEOs and STOs. And during that time, we also saw that the SEC, the American regulator, Securities Exchange Commission, starting to scrutinize and pursue crypto companies, bringing them to court, like Kik and Telegram, for example. And then we noticed a brave new world, 2020, which involved a few phenomena now everybody can see, such as the rise of DeFi, the rise of NFTs, and the rise of decentralized exchanges. Now, decentralized exchanges is something that is worth delaying about, because and speaking a little bit further, because decentralized exchanges, while providing ease of use and ease of offering and issuance of cryptocurrencies, entail major regulatory risks. For example, when we used to do IEOs, initial exchange offering, an exchange would vet the company. Even in an ICO, once you want to list the token in an exchange, the exchange would vet the company, seeing that it's legit. Right now, when I'm issuing through a decentralized exchange, there's no one vetting the company. No real person, anyway. So this poses a risk from the side of the investor, but it's a peer-to-peer transaction. It's also involves a risk from the side of the company, because I don't know who I'm selling my tokens to. It can be a terrorist, it can be a drug dealer, it can be a sanctioned country even. It's a major regulatory risk, and we need to know it. We need to notice it when working. We also saw large-scale blockchain enterprises go public and do large-scale transactions, such as Coinbase issuing on NASDAQ. We saw crypto exchanges that involve regulatory oversight gaining the status of a true exchange, like any other market, like the NASDAQ and like others. We saw Symmetria getting this kind of license in Israel. We saw INX getting the same kind of license in the US. And we saw in Salvador adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender, a trend which I'm sure will be again in other countries. Now, the shift has happened. The shift has happened because most investors wanted more security and are there for the long term. Most investments today were made by corporate investors wanting to be in there for long term and engaging in crypto as an investment for long term and not on a day trading method. And we saw the rise of mechanisms like ETFs. ETFs that are traded in public markets involving exposure to Bitcoin. Now, what are the main takeaways? And I'll delay about it for one more minute. And this is the most important thing for anyone that contemplates trading. Be mindful of the risks associated with cryptocurrency trading and know these kind of assets. Now, this is the only point in my presentation that's in capital letters, and there's a reason for it. Be mindful of your investment, and more importantly, diversify your investments. Investments diversification is a must. While investing in a new product, you need to be mindful of it and have it run through a code review. You have to make a code review. Any DeFi protocol today has to go through a code review. Any token issued has to go through a code review. And if you look at rug pull phenomena, look it up on Google, any rug pull attack could have been avoided, or most of them could have been avoided by doing a thorough code review. Keep in mind that the risks associated and be mindful of the volatility. Thank you for attending this summit. Thank you for attending my talk. Goodbye.
GovCoins. Will CBDCs be the bridge to mass adoption or destroy the concept of cryptocurrency? With Anna Melton, Bitcoin.com, Michael Chabanian, X-Reserve, George Siosi Samuels, Fire, and Georgi Secretariuk, Beacon 256.
So, welcome to the panel, GovCoins. Will CBDC be the bridge to mass adoption or destroy the concept of cryptocurrency? So you see Anna Melton here. Anna cannot join us today. And please welcome on stage next to me, Georgi Secretariuk. Was that right?
Hello there.
Managing partner at Beacon 256. You help traditional investors enter the crypto market. Is that right?
Yes, correct. Yeah. My background is in crypto policy and working in Canada particularly. So if you're familiar with Vancouver, I'm based in Vancouver and I've worked out in BC and a project in Ontario there. And then I moved on into investing with my partner here.
Perfect. And next one is Jorge George Sebastião. Was that correct?
Yeah, my name is George Sebastião. It's a pleasure to be here. I think today is the panel for the Georges.
Exactly.
So what's the chance of having 3 Georges on the same panel? So I co-started or co-founded the GBO, Global Blockchain Organization, which is an NGO out of Oslo. And right now I'm a CBO within Simba Storage, which is a cold storage for basically digital currencies like Bitcoin.
Thank you. Welcome. And on Zoom, we have George number 3, George Siosi Samuels. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, pleasure to be amongst all the other Georges.
Thanks for joining us. You are managing director of FIRE. You build meta communities for business and government leaders. Can you say something about it?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, with the recent Facebook rebrand, it was perfect timing for our specialization, which is at the intersection of communities and technology. First came across Bitcoin in 2013, been in this space formally for about, I think, 4 or 5 years now. And yeah, we're most well known for our blockchain efforts, actually, for governments in the South Pacific.
Okay, welcome. So we have 3 Georges. I just call you George 1, George 2, George 3. Okay. Starting with you, Georgie, isn't the idea of Bitcoin the decentralization?
Yeah. At the very core, the idea of Bitcoin has always been decentralization. But in my personal view, the interesting challenge that we are facing right now in crypto, well, that's now coming into the topic of CBDCs, is the fact that, yes, while we do need to work towards decentralization, stablecoins are an important intermediary into the next step. The challenge that we have is right now is the volatility of the market is making it very hard to be an active currency in our real world. There's 2 things that are very important for any currency, and it's a unit of account and a medium of exchange. Now, the challenge that we're facing is more so that because of the volatility, and if an iPhone today is worth 1 coin, and then a year from now it's worth 10 coins, then you as a consumer will be really upset. Now, on the other hand, if a year from now the iPhone is worth 0.1 coin, then Apple is also gonna be very upset because now they're not gonna be making any money or whatever the case is. So there's a bit of a challenge, and also like more accounting for companies and governments. Like, how do you really reconcile a statement if you put a value on a product, but then a year or a month from now, that product value is now different. So the value has to change. So what's very interesting is that right now, because of how young the industry is, we don't have a crypto basket of goods or anything that we can look at and say, this is going to be our hedge, and we're going to look at this and create a purely crypto stablecoin. And so this is where I think I see stablecoins and CBDCs specifically coming in and being that more of a transitionary push towards crypto adoption that'll kind of help establish a peg. But yeah, there are dangers with governments overreaching as they always do.
Okay, George number 2. Are CBDC cryptocurrencies, digital currencies, or how do they differentiate from Bitcoin? What do you think?
Actually, there's some elements that are extremely important and quite differentiate them. You can say originally when the white paper of 9 pages got released for Mr. Nakamoto as an individual or a group of individuals, usually known as cyberpunks, they were trying to kind of create an alternate system that went around the existing financial structures that they did not trust. However, it did fix some problems, but it created other challenges that they did not fix. So one example was the capability of regulatory approach, or sometimes we call KYC or AML. The second thing it did not fix from the beginning was the capability of being a payment system, because it was not able to perform enough transactions per second. 7 transactions per second was not a solution, although later on the Lightning Network came to fix this problem. And of course, there's the issue of decentralization as well as the issue of ownership. Now, of course, the governments as they exist today have not been extremely responsible by printing massive amounts of currencies, which kind of devaluates the value that people have or they have owned over the past. That really means that you can say both play a balancing role. So I think they kind of play, you can say, a symbiotic as well as a competitive role all at the same time. But I think you need both, because on one side, things like Bitcoin provide you a hedge against inflation and provide you the capability of being your own bank, where things like CBDCs will add elements of things like performance, government control, as well as the capability of having what we call a stable coin. So that means if you pay something like $1 or RMB, it's 1 RMB. It's not like by the time the transaction is finished, the person who's providing the service or the product does not get the original money that they expected.
Yeah. And George number 3 on Zoom, what do you think, what's the difference between the demand for cryptocurrencies and the reality of CBDCs for most nations?
Yeah, so I think the explosion of cryptocurrencies has actually made things more complicated for your everyday user. And I definitely see that CBDCs have a place. And it's interesting hearing about sort of the interpretations of what Bitcoin was meant to do. I think because of the people who maybe evangelized it and got it popular, the narrative went down that way of an anti-government sort of currency. But from my understanding of Bitcoin, it was never anti-government, it was more pro-honesty. And there's kind of like a big difference. And so looking at Bitcoin as an example, as an electronic cash system, it's actually quite possible for Bitcoin to essentially be the underlying piping system for all of the world's currencies. So you could potentially have each government's own currencies just tokenized on Bitcoin. And the 7 transactions per second thing that BTC currently experiences is not a technical issue. It's actually more of a political one. It's a self-imposed limit. So these are all very interesting things just to sort of see evolve over the last however many years. And I think we still got about 10, 20 more years before we see things sort of settle down. But I think, CBDCs are here to stay. And if you look at the history of power, Bitcoin was really more about sort of decentralizing power, not necessarily sort of the other things that people want to have decentralized. And I don't think they need to be conflicting.
Question to all of you. Will CBDC drive adoption forwards or backwards? Is it evolution or revolution? Georgie?
I guess I'll go first. In my opinion, I think that CBDCs are a very important and critical next step into drive adoption for cryptocurrency market, particularly because right now there's a lot of inherent market risk around organizations like Tether running stable coins where we don't know what's happening with the transactions. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of whether you trust government more or less. It's more of a personal and individual thing. But as a whole, there's an inherent risk of an organization on their own creating the stable coin that is not backed by any authority, where we don't know where the money is coming from. And so for governments, there's also the thing that they don't have is the control that they wish to have, because the governments understand that they need to adopt digital currencies in order to move forward, in order to be relevant, in order to maintain their network power and their financial power in the new digital age. The challenge is more regulatory and how to overcome that, and there's good and bad models of how that's happening around the world, and more is about to be coming into play here. But I think for a lot of would-be investors that I've talked to and that I've worked with, for them a challenge is that what they're struggling with, and that stops them from putting money into the market. I'm talking about more of the traditional investors. Is the challenge that there is a lack of regulation, and that so they fear their money might be lost. And so I'm not saying that stablecoins are necessarily the one and all be all solution, but that combined with regulation is probably a little bit of a first step. And then after that, as the crypto ecosystem develops an actual basket of goods and services native to the crypto world, to the metaverse, at that point we will be able to create our own stablecoins innate to crypto that are pegged to the basket of goods, and so we can track how that performs over time, because currently that's not really a possibility.
I do believe that I see CBDCs as an evolutionary step rather than a revolutionary one. If one knows about Tether, as you know, created originally by Brock Pierce, which is a good colleague, now sometimes traveling between Puerto Rico and Latin America. And if you actually look today, the most used coin today is actually Tether. And why? Because it's stable. And it's actually Tether that in some cases is also driving the adoption for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is amazing. It's an edge against inflation. It does have some issues. For example, if you lose the keys, that's it. Or if you forget the keys, 20% of the Bitcoins have been lost as a result of misplacing the keys. Or, for example, if you die, your spouse or the company that replaces you, how do you hand over that? So you need to have a multi-signature system that implements that. So I do believe that we need a combination of both. And I do believe that there is a lot of elements that are being addressed today, things like baskets of currencies that combine several currencies together. If we visit China, I visit China for the last 7 years on a regular basis, being CTO for Huawei for a period of time. Nobody uses cash anymore. Everything is digital. So digital by itself drives adoption. And I think the world is ready for a cashless society. So a combination of those two elements is going to be critical in the world that is accelerating business tomorrow.
I think looking to China is looking like 5 to 10 years in the future. It's always good. Josh 3 on Zoom, what do you think? Evolution
in terms
or
of what specifically, sorry?
Is it evolution or revolution?
Yeah, I would probably agree with the evolution part. You look at the history of money, and if you look at how adoption works as well, for the everyday person, if you look even at the history of crypto and sort of, the desire to have a global currency, and if you're wanting it to be for everybody, then you kind of need to work with governments as well. Because the everyday person usually will trust things with a government stamp of approval. It's great that the cypherpunks have been leading the way with their rebellious nature, but as things settle down, you're going to kind of need more than that and different levels of trust. So I think it's an evolution. The revolution, I think, still is micropayments, and many blockchain projects, in my opinion, not really working the way it should. If we look at transaction fees for both even BTC and Ethereum, they still suffer from scaling issues on chain. So I personally still think there's a long way to go, but it's an evolution.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think should governments look out for in terms of using permission or permissionless blockchains?
Yeah, I think there's a misnomer around calling a blockchain permission. Well, we're looking at sort of the public versus private nature. I know in government circles, there's often talk about, having a private blockchain, but blockchains are public by nature. So I think what we're seeing is that people are still trying to figure out how to deal with privacy on a blockchain that is essentially a public ledger. And in Europe, right, you have laws around GDPR. And I know from talking with different enterprises, et cetera, that's still a big deal. So I think for permission versus permissionless, the world is going to move more towards the sort of permissionless and public ledger route. And I think there are many great minds out, finding good solutions to deal with that, and hopefully leveraging the on-chain capabilities for, actual micropayments where the transactions aren't costing, crazy amounts right now.
Mm-hmm. And so in your daily business, what is your biggest challenge or your biggest impediment when you're working on this topic? Is it the acceptance, or is it the knowledge that people don't know about the topic? What challenge do you have in daily business? George, number one first.
Looking at the both of us. I think it depends on who you're talking to. So for the younger people my age, almost everybody's heard of Bitcoin or has invested into Bitcoin or some other altcoin. Everybody has an investment. Now the challenge is how to manage money properly and how to be a responsible investor and think about a long-term investing future. So that's one aspect. There are obviously younger adopters. They're really quickly to catch on to the technical aspects of it. So there's no issues there. I think the biggest gap right now is for the older people that still most of the money is held by Gen X and what we call the baby boomer generation in North America, but pretty much everybody over 40 years old, right? And I'm not saying that for the audience here, but generally speaking, what we find is that there's a few challenges that they face. First of all, they don't know about what crypto is or how it works and all the ins and outs, and the current ecosystem is underdeveloped, so the UX and UI doesn't help. Number two, there's a lack of trust in the system, because all they see in the news is there's two types of articles. Bitcoin is up 100%, or Bitcoin is down 60%. Like today, I saw an article, there was the drop, and there was an article that it's down, the market is crashing or something like that. And so what they're used to seeing is just this huge volatility, and they don't understand what's happening in the market, and they're scared to get into that. So again, there's a lot of factors that are being into play, but what we can do as what we do as investors and advisory, we help them bridge the gap and adjust their investments for their risk profile of our clients. So again, and there's many tools that are being built out in DeFi, particularly the last few years. They'll let you do that. But again, it's an evolving topic depending on the generation who you talk to.
I think there's two things that are important. The first one is education. I think education is primordial, because most of the people that are using this new generation of digital currencies don't have the necessary knowledge or understanding about them. So giving them the necessary knowledge is extremely important. And I can give an example from Canada. When ATMs got introduced in Canada over 30 years ago, we used to have this booklet that was the ledger of what you had in your bank. So when people said, go use the ATM, what people used to do is use the ATM, run back into the bank, and automatically update the booklet, because they did not trust the ATM machine. So in the Bitcoin world, in the digital currency world, we have the same issues. But beyond that, I think what is very important is the use cases as we move forward, because everything about this is really about digitalization. That means digitizing the way we do business. That means we are accelerating business. One example of such acceleration, especially when you use digital currencies, is the usage of 2 or 3 technologies. One is smart contracts. So smart contracts can save business lots of dollars. One of the large telecommunication organizations in the world, without naming names, is today saving $400 million a year through the usage of smart contracts. So this is a big game changer, because the things that were traditionally done on paper today are done completely in a digital way. So besides that, we have a whole new generation of applications that were not there before. People are talking about NFTs. The new word today is gamify. Gamify is a combination of many things. Gamification, NFT, DAOs and decentralized finance. So what people are doing is combining several technologies together to change the business models that we have been used to in the past. So I think the future looks extremely bright as we move forward.
Okay. And George, number 3 on Zoom, could you give us a short answer, please? The time flies.
Yes, sure. Sorry, could you repeat the question again? Because I was so mesmerized by the answers.
The question was the biggest challenges, impediments in your daily business.
Yeah, I think it is dealing with the stigma. So, as mentioned from Georgia number 2, the education. I think the last I saw, still only about 3.9% of the world are actual crypto holders. And then, even less for those who are actually transacting or using. And so I think, yeah, the biggest challenge definitely is an education piece, but I guess that's probably why we're in the business, to hopefully help others understand and be that bridge. I think there's definitely more and more interest in sort of combining, what we're now talking about with the metaverse, and understanding the underlying technology and how that affects in sort of behaviors with online communities. And more organizations are actually now starting to consider themselves communities as well online because of this sort of transitory nature of people between the virtual world and the real world.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Give a huge round of applause to George, and George. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The World in 2029 by Lars Rinnen, Amnesty Nextbridge.
So will we go to rock concerts with robots playing AC/DC in 2029? Hell no. We'll still want to go to rock concerts with real rockers, with attitude, with tattoo, with feelings. But 2029 will be quite different from today. In 2029, you maybe not have an ordinary job. You most certainly won't own a car. And perhaps the hamburger that you're eating is made in a laboratory. What's even better is that the world in 2029 will not have poverty, pollution, famine, or disease either. So welcome to a very near but very different future. So why 2029, you may ask? Well, 2029 is an important milestone because at that time, cheap $1,000 computer will have the same computing power as your brain. That means that a machine can do basically every cognitive task that a human being can do, only quicker, faster, and better. Today, that same cheap computer is at the level of a mouse brain, so this will be a huge improvement. This will change everything. So let's look at jobs. In 2029, half of the jobs from today will be done by AI and robots. All the boring, dirty, and dangerous jobs will be gone, and no one will miss them. Sure, there will be new jobs, but most of them will actually be done by a robot. So all the routine jobs will be gone. Storage work will be done by robots and drones. You will see accountants becoming financial advisors, since bookkeeping is done by an algorithm. The ones who have non-routine jobs, they will be highly tech supported with AI, augmented reality, and they will have become substantially better at their jobs. You will see surgeons doing surgery with augmented reality glasses, highly precision. You will see building site managers like this one, using AI and augmented reality to visualize alternatives and to do informed decisions. So what about the ones who have lost their job? Well, I think this is the right way to look at that, because it's not like the robots are taking your job. This is an opportunity to do something more meaningful. But of course, you need income. So the ones who don't have to do their job anymore in 2029, they will be supported by universal basic income, financed by taxation of the hyper-profitable companies like Facebook, who hardly pays any tax at all. Then the question becomes, what would you do if your income were taken care of? Now that's a really interesting question. So let's look at the environment. In 2029, transport will be electric, energy will be renewable, and farming will be highly efficient. Those three areas amount to 66% of CO2 emissions. So that's important. And yes, you will have flying cars in 2029. So how cool is that? Cars will be electric and autonomous. Less and less people will own their own car. In the cities, almost no one owns a car. It's a subscription service. You will have lots of configurations to choose from, like sleeper cars or party cars, cheap cars, and luxurious cars. Energy will come from solar. That will be the cheapest energy source. That will power all urban transportation. So when transportation is autonomous and electric, the charging takes place outside of the city, in charging parks. That means you don't need parking spaces anymore. So parking spaces will become parks, playgrounds, even urban farming, making our cities more friendly and greener and more livable. This will take care of a lot of the CO2 emissions. I also mentioned farming, so let's look at farming while we look at hunger. So today, 11% of the global population, or 800 million people, are starving. It only costs 30 billion US to eradicate hunger, but no one is willing to pay the bill. But maybe AI and exponential technology can actually address that. So in 2029, you will see cultivated meat, indistinguishable from natural meat, full of nutrients, perfect balance. This will also reduce food waste. It will reduce the problem with farting cows. You will also see hydroponic farming, using 99% less soil, 90% less water, no use for pesticides as farming is done indoors. The lights, water, temperature, everything is controlled by AI. Now this is 300 times more efficient than traditional farming. Think about that. Take a look at this guy coming into a restaurant, having his face scanned, checking his metabolic status, suggesting what ingredients should go into his sushi, and then 3D printing exactly that sushi. So that sounds like science fiction, right? But this restaurant actually opened in Tokyo last year. So when you have cultivated food, you have hydroponic farming, you have 3D printed food, that means that food production is then local. You don't have to move it from one part of the planet to another one. That changes a lot of things. And incidentally, it looks like he's also enjoying the 3D printed sushi with all the ingredients. So isn't it about time that we remove the shameful fact that 800 million people are hungry. So let's look at disease. Today, we have reactive sick care. Let's face it. In the future, we will have proactive healthcare. We'll go from taking pills to using sensors to monitor our health status in real time. You'll have a lot of smartwatches, smart gadgets, collecting more data than ever before. And these sensors are also going on your skin and also under your skin. I have 4 friends who has this kind of sensor in their hand, actually. And in 2029, you will also see nanobots injected into your bloodstream, keeping viruses at bay and even fighting cancer, as well as removing congestion in your blood vessels. So 1 nanometer is about the size that your fingernail grows in 1 second. So it's super small. So this will be as ordinary as taking a vaccine. So is this science fiction? No, it's actually just science. But people don't understand the difference between linear and exponential. 30 linear steps being 30 meters, 30 exponential steps being 1 billion meters. So people tend to think in a linear manner, but technology is developing in an exponential manner, doubling in computation speed every 18 months. And this is why this will be possible in 2029. Think about 3D printing. It is a more than 30-year-old technology, but it has been doubling exponentially ever since. And now we are 3D printing houses, food, and even blood vessels. So I believe that the future can be fantastic. Universal basic income may have eradicated poverty. We may have eradicated pollution and famine, and also made disease a thing of the past. So all that is actually possible. It's up to us, not the robots. So let's make the future fantastic for us and for the future generations to come. Thank you.